Shalom friends, this is Mayim and thank you for joining me. This is the first video in a new series that I am doing. It's called Learn Hebrew with Mayim and Aliyah a Day. And so the plan is to release a daily video, at least one daily video from Sunday through Friday that talks about one of the Aliyot, one of the 7 divisions of the Torah portion for the week. And we're going to read the whole Aliyah in English. I'll share some thoughts, and then we'll learn Hebrew together from one of those verses from the Aliyah. And so I wanted to start this week because this Shabbat is going to be the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And so it's going to be the beginning of the Jewish New Year. So it's a great time for beginnings. So on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is going to be this coming Shabbat, the Torah reading focuses on one of our patriarchs' birth. So when we talk about our fathers, like we do in the prayers, like the Amidah, and at other times, when the Jewish people say, our fathers, we're referring to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And so the reading for this week begins with the words, "And the Lord remembered Sarah." According to the Talmud, God remembered Sarah and chose to bless her with a child on Rosh Hashanah. So that was the day that he remembered. And it also talks about how Ishmael was expelled from Abraham's household because of the negative influence that he had on Isaac. And we'll talk about that later in a later Aliyah. And it also talks about the treaty between Abraham and Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. So one of the reasons, as I stated earlier, that we read this passage on Rosh Hashanah is because our sages said that the time that God remembered Sarah was on Rosh Hashanah. That's one reason. And also another reason is that, and it's probably related, it's believed that the ram that was caught in the thicket by its horns, that ram, one of its horns will be blown to herald the coming of Mashiach in the future. It will be what makes the great shofar that will be blown, and that's from Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. And we'll get to that later when we get to the Torah portion for Rosh Hashanah too. But I just wanted to say that so that we understand why we're reading from Genesis chapter 21 and 22 on Rosh Hashanah, because it seems, unless you understand, Judaism, unless you understand, the sages, it doesn't seem to make very much sense. Why are we reading this? Why are we reading Genesis 21 and 22? But this is why. Okay, so the full reading for Rosh Hashanah 1. So remember, there are 2 days for Rosh Hashanah on the Jewish calendar. There's Rosh Hashanah 1 and Rosh Hashanah 2. And the reason why there are 2 days is because historically, when the Sanhedrin would announce that, yes, indeed, this is a new moon, it took time for the word to get out to everyone throughout Israel. So by the time some people knew the first day had already passed. This is a historic reason. One of the reasons why it's celebrated for 2 days. Okay, so on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we read Genesis chapter 21, and on the second day we read Genesis chapter 22. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah also, another thing to note is that the biblical way to call it is Yom Teruah, which is day of shouting, or day of a loud shofar blast. We call it Rosh Hashanah because, according to Judaism, also according to our sages, according to Jewish history, it is the day that Adam and Eve were created. So it is the crowning day of creation, when creation was completed. Now we have Nisan, or Abib 21, Nisan 1. We have that as the beginning of months, but that is the birth of our nation. That is the birth of Israel. But Tishrei 1, which is Rosh Hashanah, this is the birth of creation. Okay, so time didn't start on Nisan 1 or Aviv 1. Time began, as it were, in terms of, creation being completed on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, and there's a Jewish prophecy that talks about how the creation week, Sunday through Friday, or day 1 to day 6, represents 6,000 years of this world. And then after 6,000 years, there's going to be 1,000-year millennial reign, right? A messianic era. And then after that is the Olam Haba. So that's counting from Rosh Hashanah, basically 6,000 years. And right now, when Rosh Hashanah comes, we're going to be in the year 5781, 5,781. So we have some more time to go still, if that prophecy is true. Okay, so the full Aliyah is going to be found, the full Torah portion is found in Genesis chapter 21, verses 1 through 34. But the first Aliyah, which we'll read today, is found in Genesis chapter 21, verses only 1 through 4. Okay, let's read it in English first. It says in Genesis chapter 21, verse 1, it says, "And the Lord remembered Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had spoken. And Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham named his son, who had been born to him, whom Sarah had borne to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him." Now the second verse right here, it says, "And Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him." In his old age, in Hebrew, is right here, liskunav, two, literally two. Then this zaken means old or elderly, and this av means his. So two, in his old age. So in the Bible, whenever there is a miraculous birth, just like this, it also happened to, of course, Samuel. His mother was barren until she prayed for him to give birth, and even Moshe in Jewish legend, he was born in miraculous circumstances. So in the Bible, when someone is born with a miraculous circumstance, it means that this child is chosen, is special, is destined. I mean, it doesn't always have to mean that, of course, but it often does in Jewish legend. However, the Midrash Rabbah says that this word Liskunav, that it means something different. The Midrash Rabbah says that, Genesis Rabbah says that this term right here means that Isaac, when he was born, he looked just like his elderly father. He was a splitting image of his father. So that one of the reasons they say is so that no one would mistaken Isaac to be the son of the king Avimelech, because if you remember, Sarah was like his concubine for a while. Although they never had sexual intercourse, she was taken um, to be among one of his concubines, and just so that no one would think that Isaac, was a product of Sarah and this foreign king. God made Isaac to look exactly like his father, so that if you saw Isaac, it was like you were seeing his father. They looked very much alike. So now let's to learn Hebrew. In this video, I wanted to actually go into the third verse right here. The third verse says Vaikra, which means and he called. Okay, there's actually a Torah portion called Vaikra. The Va means and. The Yud here makes it third person, he. And then this Kra, that's called. Okay, so Vaikra, and he called. Avraham is the subject, so and Abraham called. Et, this is a direct object pointer. Shem beno, Shem means name. Ben is son, and this O part means his. So the name of his son. Hanolad, who was born, okay, lo, to him. So Hanolad, who was born, lo, to him. This ha right here makes it reflexive, right? Something was done to the son. The son was born. Okay, so the son was born to him. Lo is to him. The lamed is to, and then the o part means him. And then here we have asher, that, and this is yaleda. This is she bore. Now she bore. The he here makes it feminine. That she bore lo, to him. This is the same lo here. Okay, it means to him. So the son who was born to him, who she bore to him, Sarah. So Sarah is the one who bore the son to him. Yitzchak. So this is the name, Yitzchak. Okay, so now in Hebrew, Tzachak, which is just these three letters right here, Tzadi, Chet, and Kuf, means he laughed. Okay, so Yitzchak actually means he will laugh. Tzachak is he laughed, and Yitzchak is he will laugh. If you remember in a previous story, God told Abraham that he would have a son through his elderly wife Sarah, and Abraham laughed, and the Lord replied, Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac, or Yitzchak. That's from Genesis 17:19. So when Sarah heard the prophecy that she would bear a son within the year, she laughed to herself. And a year later, holding her baby son in her hands, she said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And I think that's in the next Aliyah. So the result of faith, as Sarah saw, is joy. Things may seem unbelievable, and when they come true, we know that this has to be God, because this is too amazing. This is too wonderful to be true. It's just too amazing. So oftentimes when God does these wonderful miracles for us, when sometimes they're just so amazing, so wonderful, that you either believe it and are amazed with joy, or you laugh and you think that's got to be a joke. That's got to be impossible. There's just no way that this could happen. And this is the kind of joy, this is the kind of wonderful miracle that God did for Sarah. And you know what? He continues to do that for people even today. There are still miracles. And there's always miracles that even doctors, will say, you know what? We thought that this was going to happen to a patient. We thought that this patient could never have a baby. We thought this patient was going to die. But a miracle happened. And this kind of thing happens all the time. And when doctors encounter these kinds of things, it goes against their training, against what they've taught of, in regards to what is supposed to happen when someone has this kind of prognosis. And it's because, this is something that they realize only God can do. And this is how, this is the kind of laughter, this is the kind of joy that only God can give. It seems foolishness to the world, seems impossible. But to those of us who believe, and to those of us who have experienced his miracles, his goodness, his faithfulness, it's just cause for pure joy and tears of joy and even laughter. So thank you so much for joining me, and I pray that this coming new year, this coming Jewish New Year, will be filled with these kinds of joys and miracles and laughters for all of us. I know 2020 has been a very rough and just crazy, terrible year with, the COVID and the fires and the riots and all these things that are going on. But there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. And just as we've gone through this terrible time together, may Hashem give us laughter and joy in the end, in the year to come, in the days to come, in the holiday to come, coming very soon, this Rosh Hashanah. Until next time, Shavua Tov. Visit my website at www.hebrewmayim.com and join my network to receive the daily and weekly emails to learn more about Hebrew, Torah, and Judaism. I am also an herbalist and a health coach, so please visit me also at www.arukah.com, arukah.com, to learn more about holistic health and natural healing. The creator of heaven and earth is also the great physician, and he can heal everything from sickness and disease to broken hearts and homes.